What's going on, guys? Sledgehammer70 here, and today I'm going to do an install guide for the cold air Inductions cold air intake. Now, this is a direct replacement for your stock airbox that comes with the 2016 Camaro SS. Now, this is not for the LT, this is unique to the SS build only. I'm going to go over the tools that you need, some of the install issues I had. My unit did have a missing mark on it to align the MAF sensor properly, so I had a call with cold air Inductions and looked at a lot of pictures to make sure I aligned it up properly. So hopefully this guide is helpful to you. Let me know in the comments below, but here we go. So the first thing that we'll do is go over the individual tools needed to uninstall and install the old stock cold air intake or intake and the new cold air Inductions intake. So the first thing that you'll need is a star bit, a T20. This will be utilized to remove the mass airflow sensor off the stock intake. You will also need another star T10 bit, and you will use this to install the mass airflow sensor and screws for the cold air Inductions intake. I do have a square S1 style bit. This is to fasten the lid to the cold air Inductions intake. I use one big fat flathead screwdriver, also a small flat screwdriver, and because I don't have like pipe clamp or whatever, I use vice grips in this build because I just don't have a normal set of like pliers that are wide enough to take off one of the clamps here. So let's get to it. For the first part of the uninstallation of the stock intake, what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen the two clamps that are holding it to the throttle body and to the airbox. This is where you use your flathead screwdriver. Now the other side of things is right here on the back side you have your mass airflow sensor. It does have a connector that's a slide clamp, just like most of the connections in a vehicle. Unplug the power to the mass airflow sensor and tuck it under. Unplug the mass airflow sensor. Next up you will need, this is where your vice grips or your pliers come into play. You have a clamp here on your sound tube. Literally just pull that down, and if I can actually get it, pull that off. I'm going to disconnect this tube. It's just a push clamp, and usually I'll just push this up out of the way so it's out of the way. So I'll take this off. There you go. There's the stock tube. Now, the stock airbox is actually just sitting on some grommets. Literally, you'll just have to grab it and pull it off. But before you can do that, there's this tube right here. And if you don't have a catch can, you won't see these pipes, obviously, or tubes. But there is I believe this is the vacuum tube. Yeah. So this is the intake sound tube. They do have it clipped on the back corner of your intake. So literally just unclip this and pull it out. And because I have my catch can tubing in the way, lift that out of the way and I just tuck it underneath. So once you tuck it underneath, it's out of the way, good to go. So now the stock intake, literally you just grab it with two hands and pull it right on up. And make sure the grommets don't come off with it. So in my case, one of my grommets stuck to the, and there you go. Here's the stock intake. So now you have a big empty hole. Let's check it out. It's also a great time if you're like me, like to clean your motor. You can wipe in those hard to reach places, get it all clean. But that's what it looks like without your intake. So off the stock intake tube, you're gonna have to take two pieces off to transfer over to the new intake tube. I'm gonna just grab those and put them side by side. So here's the new tube. Reverse the old tube. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna be taking this piece off and the sound tube off. And now these are fastened by two metal clamps that are not reusable, unfortunately. And this is where your small flathead screwdriver comes into play. And what these clamps are, you just break them away. There's two little, they're basically the shape of your flathead screwdriver. You'll basically twist in there. It'll break that initial clamp on both of these, and you can then carry them over. So. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera like a madman. So there's your first clamp. And your second clamp. Now, the cold air inductions does come with two new clamps that you'll be using on these. The bigger one's obviously for the sound tube, and the smaller one for the catch. So we'll set this to the side. So I usually just set the clamps on there first. The nice thing is you don't have to tighten these all the way right away, but it allows you to get this back into place. So sound tube, just go ahead and put that back in. Sitting right on there now. And then the catch. Slid right on there. We have our clamps sitting on here. They're not tightened yet. And this is where my vice grips will come into play again. Open them pretty wide. What I'll actually do is I'll open this, tighten it just enough to get a good seal. There you go. And then I'm going to rotate that down so I don't have to see that ending of that clip sticking up, because it's not pretty. And then same here, tighten this one, line it up. And on this side, I'm probably, see if I can, no, it doesn't want to rotate. I tightened it too much, whatever. So now that we have the tube done, I'm going to move that out of the way, because I found installing the box with the filter and the mass airflow sensor was the best route to go. So unfortunately, and I want to show you guys this, in the instructions it highlights that there's supposed to be a divot right here on this metal so that you align the mass airflow sensor with the filter, with the mass airflow sensor housing and the box, because if it's off by so much, it can throw engine codes. Now, as you can see, mine lacks that marking. So what I've had to do is actually rely on Cold Air Inductions install, or not install, but pictures that they've posted online to make sure that my housing is actually lined up. So that's one issue that you're going to see. So the filter does slide into the housing, just like so. Again, sorry, adjust that so you can see. So you can see the filter sits right in there. Now, one thing you'll notice is it's loose. That is by design. That's so if the engine and stuff moves, this can move with it and not rip this thing or pull it away. But the other side is you'll notice when you line this up, it's not going to be at a perfectly straight angle. Now, and not the filter, but when you actually connect it to this tube over here, it's going to be kind of at an awkward angle, and I'll show you what I'm talking about once it's installed. But again, that's by design. It's not supposed to sit flush. I'm not too excited by that design choice or how they made it look, but from what I could tell from all the images and from calling Cold Air Inductions, that is by design. So now, putting the housing in, you just align it with the 3 grommets and literally just push it in there. Lift it up a little bit and you're good to go. In my instance, back to the alignment and everything, what I found is that with the Cold Air Inductions writing, it'll be perfect. You can read it looking on this way, and the actual arrow lining up with the knob on the air filter lines up just about perfect to what the pictures and images are showing. Now, I've contacted Cold Air Inductions about it. They haven't said if they would replace my housing unit or not to make sure I have it lined up perfectly. But I'm going to ask for that because I want to make sure it's perfectly right. So when you're installing yours, just make sure the arrow, the little tab, and the mark that's supposed to be on your box is aligned up. If you don't have that, call Cold Air Inductions, but my best advice is just line it up the best you can for the time being, and that's what I'm doing here. So next you have your two clamps. Smaller one goes on the throttle body side, the bigger one goes on to the MAF housing side. But before I put this on, I want to actually put my mass airflow sensor on, which I did not take off from the stock box yet. Let's see if I can get this in the shot. So this is where your T20 comes in. There's two screws that hold this bad boy in place. And you will not be reusing these screws. Cold Air Inductions has provided their own screws. So you want to pull that out, get rid of this. And this bad boy just slides right back in. There we go. So these two screws were installed in the mass airflow housing. I unscrewed them because you have to unscrew them anyways, and I didn't want to do it while it was in the car. So I'm going to rotate this so you can see it. You can see that's installed there. Line it back up. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and plug the unit back in and snap it in. Make sure to snap that clip on the back side so that doesn't fall out or fall off. So this is the fun part. Now, I'm going to install it from the large side first because this is the hardest side to get aligned. So we'll slide this on. But you can see how this does not line up perfect. It does not sit flush. And that is flush up against the throttle body. This is flush. I mean, you can, if you angle it out anymore, it kicks this out even more. So, but pushing that in, getting a good alignment. So even if I try to push the filter flush, you'll see the this part will hit up against the MAF housing connection, and you can't really position it any other angle. So it looks like it is by design. Again, I'm not fond of how they designed it. I mean, I understand they need movement and adjustment from the motor moving in the filter, so this doesn't rip this out. But I don't know, feels like they could have angled this out a little bit more and got a better angle, but that's just me. I'm not an engineer. So now at this point, we have the mass airflow sensor plugged in. We have our rings in place. We'll tighten those up here in just a second. Get them lined up. Now that I got the airflow sensor all lined up, I have my rings clamped up. Now I'm gonna put these parts back on. So this is just a quick snip. And here you just expand the clamp. Get it back on the tubing. And there you have it. So the only thing else left to do is sticking the lid on the box. And one thing I noticed is here, I usually just put the rubber in first and then lay it down on the box. It lines up and it gets underneath all these metal parts here. So this is now where you use your square S1. I don't even think these are square clips. They're not, they're hexagon. Actually, polygon. I don't have polygon screw tips, so square ones work just as good. There you have it. Cold Air Inductions intake installed. The only thing left to do now is start her up and see how she sounds. I think that sound difference is pretty good. Now, one thing I'm not going to do in this guide is do a full review and dyno testing. I'm waiting for my other cold air intake from Mishimoto to show up so I could do side-by-side comparisons with stock cold air inductions and Mishimoto. But those are coming. I'll have full reviews with air fuel, mixture charts and the dyno charts, and just checking out every aspect to make sure what is actually happening with your car when you install this cold air intake. Now, I know a lot of people are hesitant about installing these. I know one thing that I just want to caveat here is GM is offering a cold air intake, or will be selling it shortly, for the 2016 Camaro SS. It looks very much like the cold air induction system. It could potentially be a licensing deal that they have with them. I'm not entirely sure, but it should alleviate, you know, the concerns of, should I put a cold air intake on my car? If GM's going to offer it and mark up that it is going to provide an increase in airflow, I would say that's a pretty sure sign that, you know, putting a cold air intake will help or provide more power for these cars. I'll be getting into a lot of that stuff later. I'll also be getting the GM intake and have full gamut of results across the board, so bear with me as we wait for some of those products to roll out, etc. But as always, guys, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think of this install guide. Let me know what else you would love to see in the channel. But as always, I appreciate the support, the subscribes. The channel's growing like crazy. I never dreamed of it, so it's awesome to have so many Camaro fans out there interested in the content that I'm posting. But until next time, guys, I will see you on the road.